probably get started. So we, can get rolling. I don't know if to BD, since we knew that Robin is unavailable, but we're going to send her the full quarterly meeting agenda just to chime in on. But if maybe to BD or Maricela, I see your comment in there. Somebody could call us to order. Any council member, it's all good.
Welcome everyone, and I'd like to call this meeting of May 19th of the Youth Development Council Executive Committee to order.
Thanks to BD. Do you, Melissa, want to just do? Can't remember if in committee meetings we do like the quick roll or
yes, I'll do a quick roll call. Robin Johnson. To BD Lewis.
Present.
Maricela Ortega Guzman.
Present.
Molly Rogers. Let's see here. And Zan Ojero.
Present.
And then I will note that we have Jeff Parker attending as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And a number of staff have showed up. I asked at least our kind of primary leadership team and supervisors to come, and I imagine some other grant managers might be here as well, which is great. Just folks listening in and other YDD staff just to kind of hear what's being planned for our quarterly meeting. On our agenda are kind of two items, one around council recruitment discussion, and then our quarterly meeting agenda review. I don't have a lot to say on the council recruitment, other than it's an important priority because we've got people who are terming off and we've got, strategic planning kind of looming for the fall. I can tell you all that through our community conversations in the fall, and then just some other conversations, I have identified 3 people who are potential candidates. They haven't applied formally, but in one of the meetings with our community engagement work in the fall that was with the kind of coalition of juvenile justice entities out in Redmond, Oregon, there was a presenter from an organization. And my son is calling me. I'm not sure what he wants. And I'm not going to put names out there just because I feel like that'd be kind of premature, but a youngish person who works with a nonprofit that serves young people that seemed interesting. And another person, when we were doing our community conversations in the Eastern Oregon, that was actually the Umatilla, the Confederate Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation hosted us at our community conversation at one of their properties in Pendleton proper, and there was a younger person who was somebody who I followed up with and said, hey, you would be a good candidate for our council. So that's the second person. And then the third person is a former nonprofit executive director in kind of the East Multnomah County area, but now lives, I think, kind of a little further south down the valley, south of Salem, I think towards Corvallis actually, and does some work with the U.S. Federal Reserve, which is an interesting set of responsibilities, kind of around kind of community engagement and kind of relationship building. Now, there may be some conflicts that person has because she's an employee of the federal government, but knew her through work when I was here in Multnomah County. Now not being in the metro area actually felt like a interesting thing, like getting some folks from around. Like the one other candidate I mentioned is an Eastern Oregon person. The other is more of a based in the Central Oregon space. And then this third candidate would be kind of, I-5 corridor, but not Portland metro area, just kind of Salem area, generally speaking, Salem Corvallis area, which I know are not the same thing, but I can't remember her address. So 3 interesting candidates, and I've had conversations with them. That's what I know. I guess I think and would welcome conversation, or we're as we're finishing up the biennium, we're real super focused on biennium and RFA and our budget and legislative stuff. So right at this very moment, it's not at the top of the list, but it's creeping to the top. And I think by June 30, although whatever's happening in the legislature with the walkout at the Senate level, it may slow things down. I think I will have a little bit more space, post June 30 to really kind of get it into high gear. And maybe it's at that point that we can have a little bit more focused conversation. But that's the quick update. I guess I would open up to questions or comments. And I continue to say if there are ideas of people I welcome them. I know Anya too. I'll say this real quickly and then I will I will stop. We've had some conversations of trying to identify somebody representing the judiciary. And that isn't, haven't gotten a name, but through some of the work that the Oregon Judicial Department is doing around a juvenile delinquency improvement project, we put on their report, and it's in their, like they wrote a report about things that they thought could improve. They included the fact that having representation from the judiciary would really be important for the Youth Development Council / State Advisory Group, which we have that designation is given the federal funds that we administer. So with that, comments or questions and discussion.
I see that Taviti had a question in the chat, but
Deficient. That's a great question, Taviti, and perhaps we could do a little. Actually, Melissa has I think it's a spreadsheet, and I will not say, I can't tell you exactly how up to date it is, but it is a spreadsheet, Taviti, where we have a bunch of kind of different categories listed that are required by the federal government as it relates to our status as the state advisory group. Again, a designation we have because we administer certain federal funds and have certain responsibilities right around the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act. And I think, maybe not right here in this moment, but we could share that maybe is in advance of the next quarterly meeting and or soon thereafter, just as a, hey, here's where our current members are meeting those requirements and the categories, and here are places where, to your question, where we're deficient, where we don't have somebody. Now that, I think I've seen your question, the region, state, gender, race, ethnicity pieces. Maybe you probably, age might be an interesting one for us to, not that I'm going to go and ask you all how old you are, but I think we have an overarching goal of that was part of our strategic plan to increase the number of younger people, which technically means under 28 according to the federal sort of piece. And so you may have heard me allude to the fact that 2 of those candidates of the 3 that I've spoken to are all would meet that under 28 threshold kind of designation. but we could do a bit of a, we could do some kind of an analysis that could help answer that question. Tabidi, we're not prepared to share that with you right now, but certainly there are areas, because I've seen the spreadsheet and use it as a tool, where some of the category where we could do a better, we could have a more diverse group. Wait, Sarah is in the comment. Love it. Thanks for the comment, Sarah. Cord, you have your hand up, and then Tabidi, maybe we'll come back to you if that didn't or did not. Well, maybe Tabidi, let's go to you. Did that answer the question? Great. And then Cord.
Sure. This made me think of something. Oh, hi, this is Cord Bucher, Deputy Director for YDD, for the record. That question made me think of something else, which is, I think that there are requirements we have to meet for the state advisory group. And I think deficiency, could be the term for when we have a required position. I also think deficiency, in terms of representation, is important to pay attention to. But one other thing I'd add, and maybe this is something to pin for strategic planning and recruitment, is just like the representation in terms of expertise and experience and advocacy around some youth populations that we've either had or haven't really had on the council. So immigrant and migrant youth, youth with disabilities, youth experiencing homelessness. I think we have folks that are working with these populations in different ways. And I think we've had council members where this was a particular population they focused on. But I just kind of wanted to throw that out as a thing that we might also be thinking about is, are there areas or populations of youth that we are seeking to serve where we could be strengthened by additional expertise on the council that really is focused on those youth? So that was just my comment.
Thanks, Cord. Melissa, I see you have your hand up. Maricela, you came into view. I don't know if you have a comment or a question, but Melissa, you first, and then Maricela, if you have something to add.
I was just going to contribute that the spreadsheet that we keep on the YDC members is informed by the interest form, or sort of the application that candidates complete and submit to the governor's office. So it's pretty thorough and contains a lot of information that informs our understanding of the overall membership. That everything from where they work to where they live and which congressional district they live in and their age, and all of that is provided to us, that we then work from
Melissa,
in our
how up
spreadsheet.
to date, how much work do we need to put in to get that thing?
I can definitely have that done before the June 8 council
Okay.
meeting. Yeah, I would
Great.
love to do that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. Maricela, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, just to respond to Cord, your suggestion in regards to specific areas. I think prior to COVID, we did have youth specifically who had focus areas such as like foster care, farm worker housing, homelessness. But since then, we've lost a lot of youth that were previously on the council. But I think our goal as a council is, to increase youth participation. And I think that those are things that we need to start prioritizing, just because it's been quite a while. And also just to say that one of our new youth council members actually started a nonprofit for disabled youth. So that's a cool area to start with. Yeah.
Thanks, Maricela. I just kudos, and I think it feels like I'll say the members of the youth committee are getting together next Monday, if I'm not mistaken, at McLaren, which is Oregon Youth Authority facility, out sort of north of, between Portland and Salem. And it's not a committee meeting, it's a member gathering. And because we have two youth members who are in custody at McLaren, it is going to be an opportunity for committee members just to meet and get to know one another after COVID and just isolation, and now all this sort of new remote world, virtual world hybrid world that we're living in. So I'm excited and appreciate the hard work that the committee members and staff put in to make that happen. And I think and hope that that meeting, we're now doing our quarterly meetings in person. with a hybrid if really, really important and necessary, but it feels like we're regaining, if you will, some of the momentum that, was, and I just say there's no blame on anybody, but that was just, it was hard to navigate all these circumstances over the last few years. And it feels like we're kind of we'll be hitting a new stride. And I appreciate the work. So thanks, Maricela.
Yeah. And since you mentioned it, yeah, we're meeting on Monday at 2:30 at McLaren. And this is, an accomplishment within itself, because we have had youth on the council who were formerly incarcerated. But this is the first time I think that we've had like in-person meetings at a facility. And this came about by us trying to figure out how we can make these meetings more accessible and for youth. And so we're still strategizing and like talking about different things that we can do to just make these spaces more youth inclusive, as Sarah had suggested. And so if you guys have suggestions or maybe something that has worked for your organizations in the past, definitely let us know.
Thanks. And I see Cord's comment about mapping expertise and advocacy that are already represented. So yeah, I think we'll probably be a couple step process of like, here's our kind of existing data sheet, if you will. And Cord, it does a pretty good job on some areas. It doesn't perhaps map some of the advocacy, if you will, expertise. But as Melissa noted, some of the things that are already included on any application that a person submits, we can just grab and put a little X, check mark. So that maybe we can just sort of hone and refine the tool. And then I see some comments in the have you ever heard of the YVOC assessment? Ooh, but I have not. And Sarah, if that's something you can share a link to, or maybe we can do our little research ourselves on we're going to talk to somebody from System of Care. Look at that, boom, dropped it in. And I think this last point about incentives, we were scheduled to have a meeting Monday, which I think is going to get postponed, but we are as a staff and as a team investigating kind of the incentive piece. Like, we know legislation passed in the last session allows for board and commissions and council members to receive, kind of basic, compensation. And so we're particularly interested in how we do that for our younger council members, or just council members, right, where money and meeting times and wait, how do I make ends meet, right, where those are barriers, and we want to do our best to have the right set of incentives and ensure better access. So this is a good, I appreciate the link, and that's, I think, something we could do as an assessment. Maybe Maricela, the youth committee, could use this resource, and we could assess this kind of state of the council at some point, not at Monday's gathering, but at a future meeting, and that could inform kind of what we do. Sarah, I will call on you. I'll say very quickly, we do have a period for public comment that's at the end of the meeting, but guess what? No, Sarah, we want to hear from you. It's better this way.
Okay. So as far as the youth voice on council's assessment, YVOC, my boss at Portland State University, Janet Walker, does a lot of research, and she helped draft this assessment, and she's able to help guide your council through that assessment if you want, and I'm happy to give you her email.
That would be great, Sarah, and would welcome your, support, assistance in maybe completing that if you're willing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, thank you.
And Sarah,
Um,
if you haven't already, would you mind adding your contact information as well? Thank you.
Great point, Marisela. Okay, so appreciate that. Want to, well, I guess we got another 6 minutes on any other. I think I was going to say any other questions or comments. Please raise a hand or put something in the chat. I think where I imagine this conversation can happen at a continued level is probably here in our executive committee. I don't know, but council members weigh in, committee members weigh in. If we should form some sort of separate committee, I'm torn about, but we could create some kind of little work group. If that's could be helpful to put this in a certain container and then say, hey, we're gonna have, I don't know, a couple meetings between, the July quarterly meeting and the September, quarterly meeting, so that which could help push progress. But on the other hand, meetings in the summer can be hard. So question if y'all think as an executive committee, can we keep pushing this forward? I will bring this up at our next quarterly meeting. Like, it's not just us, but the actual work and dare I say kind of plan about and target dates and that sort of thing, which I think is sort of on my shoulders to probably articulate, but also would love to have some shared commitments by either this committee or perhaps by a work group. So what do y'all think? Would it be helpful to have some additional council structure to move this forward, or should we do it just within the context of our executive committee? Zan, I see your hand. Thanks.
I would say that this is just a personal view. I'm having a hard enough time making it to the committees that I'm on. So I would prefer to do it within the executive committee rather than form an additional body. But if we have others on the council, when we present it in this at the next meeting that are interested and there's a sufficient group, then go for it.
Appreciate that point. One of the things we do, and I don't know if Jared or Bill are on this call, but Melissa, maybe you can help remember this, is we have our equity and disparity committee meeting next Friday. If I'm not mistaken, that's the date. And I will be at a conference and they're coming back from, or maybe at the end of a conference in DC. So I won't be there, but we'll hopefully have a critical mass in attendance at that committee meeting. But I said, hey, let's maybe as one agenda item, just do a quick preview of the quarterly meeting agenda, which will be another couple of weeks after. Long story short, it probably would behoove us that in each of our committee meetings, and so Cord, I'm thinking of you too, to kind of make sure that we put even if it's a 5-minute agenda item, just like, hey, council recruitment, right? And perhaps really, and Marisela too, at the youth committee level, so that each committee is aware and helping to advance the agenda, which may then mean we don't necessarily have to have another committee or work group, but each committee can be aware, oh, this is like, if you have ideas, if you have questions, folks are welcome to reach out to me or Melissa. But maybe it just gives it a little bit more urgency if committees are also making sure that it's on their agenda and it's just something that is spoken about.
Thanks.
Sound good? Yeah, okay. All right. I'm gonna move us, it's just for 1 o'clock. I think I'll move us on to quarterly meeting agenda review, unless there's any other comments or questions on that last topic. Okay. Melissa has put on screen the draft agenda for our quarterly council meeting, which just as a reminder for folks, I don't know, Melissa, if you, can you make it a little bigger? And maybe we'll scroll, down and up if as needed. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's helpful. So maybe go to the very top, because the top will just remind you it's at the Public Service Building, Capitol Street. We've got a link there. My strong desire is that you show up in person. This is an in-person meeting for those where it's just logistically impossible, emergencies, I know come up, family, kids, I get it. We will have this link available, but you're getting a little behind the curtain view here. I don't know, Melissa, we might not put this on the published agenda, because we had a great meeting in March, and most of you were frankly there in person. And we had a few people who said, look, something's come up, I can't. And we're like, look, okay, we've got a link. And folks who are having to, travel, and it was winter. So just understand that there's an in-person meeting with a option for hybrid in a truly kind of important situation. Any questions on that or comments? And then
I have a problem.
Oh, what's up, Tabidi?
Yeah, I'm running and I apologize, but I'm the lead on professional development workshops on that day. Let me just hope I'm wrong, but I don't think so. On the 8th. And
so you won't be able to attend. Well, let just check your
hold up.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
My workshops they start at 12. So
Okay. Well, I get it. Tabidi, we can get into those details.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to say that. Okay.
Yeah, we can, if you can show up for a couple hours until 10, from 10 to 12, it'd be great. I think
Okay.
we'll get the majority of we see right here. I'm just going to go through the agenda. Robin is planning on being there. She couldn't
And I can
today because she's on a plane, but so she'll be able to, as the chair of YDC, kind of carry the meeting forward. And Tabidi, if we can get you there for a couple hours or an hour and a half, we'll take it through the link, so you're not driving. That doesn't make sense if you need to be at a meeting. But we'll start at 10. Again, trying to give some time and space for folks who may have kiddos and need to get them off in the morning. So purposely gone for kind of a little later morning start with that in mind. And I know for some folks who are driving from some distance, I don't know if that's enough time, but it's at least a little later in the morning. We have an item on which to vote, so we put that right at the top of the agenda. The state advisory group, again, our designation given the federal funds we administer, and which kind of coincides with work that the Juvenile Justice Committee is doing. They've given them on Anya. I don't know if that amount of time seems right, but let me or Melissa know if we need to plan a little bit more time. But that committee's been working really hard. Many of Tabidi and others are on that committee, working on the juvenile crime prevention plans that counties and tribes have submitted. And so we'll need to have a vote or a motion to accept those plans. And then also we would love to vote on establishing a minimum grant amount, although I'll say this out loud, Anya, I don't know how we're not going to know budget information by then. We got the forecast, but because the legislature, so we may just need to talk internally about and Anya, correct me if I'm wrong, are we just, I don't know that we're going to be able to establish a number on June 8th.
Oh,
Probably
Is it just to
not.
approve, is it to give us the ability to,
Yes,
okay,
that would be if the council could delegate this responsibility to the YDD once we know the allocation amount.
perfect. So this is maybe on, or Melissa, we can make the language a little, like, basically give delegate the authority to YDD to establish the minimum once we know our budget. So we'll make that language a little clearer. A couple of other updates on the Coalition for Juvenile Justice Conference that is next week. So a bunch of staff and Molly from our council will be there. And then also in the same time in DC, there's a Office of Juvenile Delinquency Prevention meeting convening in DC around the same time. So that's the first agenda item. Next agenda item, I'll go a little faster. Legislative policy, strategic planning. Cord, turn to you to talk about what's going on with legislation and policy. I've got you for 15 minutes, so I don't think it's a big update. Feel free to let Melissa or me know if more or less time is needed. But I think 15 minutes will do. We'll do a little break so folks can just stretch and get up and bio break, etc. We'll have then our other big agenda item, I think, will be our youth grants update. Our RFA was issued in early, like around April 1st, around March 1st, sorry. And then the deadline was May 1st. So our staff have been working diligently and hard and just in a pretty amazing way to kind of get that process, to keep that process moving. Bunch of reviewers, maybe some of you have volunteered to review, which we appreciate. And we've got we had a reviewer training, I think last week. We're starting to make assignments. We have been in some conversation with procurement just to make sure that all of the applications themselves are meeting our kind of initial minimum qualifications. So we're having meetings about that, and have a few early next week. There are always each year some applicants who are disqualified. They do have a chance to appeal, typically like a 7-day period to appeal any disqualifications if they haven't met certain requirements. So we're in the kind of just about to sort of get that process off the ground. So lots to say about youth grants, no vote, but just an update. And I think our staff grant managers will do that. Like Paul is going to be, he's going to be out of the office. So typically you'd hear from Paul, but we'll have other staff doing that update. Any questions on that or things up to this point? After that, we will provide you lunch. I think we wanted to make sure there's enough vegetarian options and vegan and gluten-free and all that good stuff. I will note that we got coffee from, actually, I think it was one of our grantees, like a Salem-based. I don't know if I ever had a chance to say that in the last meeting, but there's a cool organization that has a little, social enterprise, kind of business, and it was youth driven, and they've got they roast their own beans and they kind of do some catering, and so they actually provided coffee. I don't think the lunches came from them, but the lunches came from another local small business. So we'll figure out the food, we'll get you fed, and we'll want to make clear who's in person, who's not, so that we can't send you food to Beatty over the internet. We wish we could, but we can't. So working lunch, and we will work in a grantee spotlight. I know our grant managers are working on some ideas, so you can hear from grantees at a couple times during this meeting. We'll go to committee updates. We will have already heard from our Juvenile Justice Committee because there's a vote associated with their work. But we'll hear from Youth Committee, and we'll want to hear how that gathering, went at McLaren, and policy, rules and research. We'll hear from them, and That'll be 10 minutes. You see right on here, this YDC recruitment, we'll give a little more update then. Make sure we've got that spreadsheet that we can share or let people know that it exists and they can look at it. I think, Melissa, one of the things we wanted to make sure we had for this coming meeting was, I mean, there's this whole spreadsheet, which is, it feels like it's just getting bigger and bigger with all the categories we want to, which is great, not a bad thing, but also some real clarity for which members are, terming off and who do we need to replace. That's probably a little bit more of a focused document, maybe, that we could just so members can say, oh, and I don't know, I'm picking on Jeff, not because of anything other than I think somebody like Jeff may be nearing, either the end of one term or maybe perhaps nearing the end of a second term. But I think that clarity was something we said at our last quarterly meeting we'd make sure to have. And maybe, Melissa, maybe you actually had it, but we just didn't have the time to go through it. I can't remember. But I think for this recruitment, there's various aspects of this, but want to make sure we're doing what we need to do to replace folks, who are either terming off or, frankly, I will tell you, full transparency, some folks, Karen Spencer, for example, right, like actually have kind of come to the end of their piece, but I've said, will you stay on until we find a replacement? So there is also that element of that we've got some catch up to do, and some members have agreed to kind of extend their time, which we really appreciate. But there's a fair amount, I think, between now and the end of the year that we want to do around the YDC, and I think the space and bandwidth, I think, will be opening up this summer and fall. So keep that in mind. Zan, yeah, you may be in that coming up on that time frame. So we will do our work to have that information, and Melissa, I think a lot of that falls squarely in your role as the kind of staff to our council. So appreciate all that you're doing in that regard. We'll do another grantee spotlight at the end. Just give folks another grantee a chance to kind of talk about the impact of their work. So what I'm thinking may happen with the grantee spotlights, just to give you a little preview, is probably have one that's maybe more virtual and just kind of maybe some kind of sharing of information or presentation through the meeting link, and then hoping to get one of our grantees to kind of show up in person and spend 15 minutes or so kind of talking about their program and impact. I don't know that we'll get somebody to actually bring young people with them, but we know that seeing and hearing the work that's happening in communities across the state that we're funding and supporting, and you're as a council that you've helped make happen, is something we're committed to doing, particularly as we kind of returned in person, and just want to make those meetings as inspiring and inspirational as we can. So grantee spotlight, then we actually move the public. We've got public comment kind of not at the very end, but just right before, so we can give any people a chance to kind of try and anybody who's there. So again, because we may have people in person showing up, that we'll have make space for that, and then we'll try to end the meeting with some quick roundup, right? Like, hey, what have we committed to? What are the things we need to make sure are happening for the next meeting? Any action items, any final pieces. I'll try to try to also say, hey, here's any new information from a director standpoint that I may have heard, related to the legislature or related to just something that we're kind of stewing on. So I'll wrap us up. Then we'll ask our chair to formally adjourn us at about 1 o'clock. And then just, did you see at the bottom, just to make sure you've marked your calendars, next meeting is September 14th. I believe that's a Thursday. And it will, all the rest of the meeting dates are there. Thanks so much, Melissa. Typically following that kind of 10 to 1, in person, we may, move to having meetings at some other places. That is TBD, but you know, if we could have a meeting at a grantee somewhere, or you know, as the youth members are getting together at McLaren, actually the Juvenile Justice Committee organized a meeting at the Multnomah Education Service District a few weeks back. I think its coming meeting this Monday will actually be virtual, but lots of things are happening in person, and to the extent that we can be creative about where our quarterly meetings happen, we'll look into that. Tabidi, appreciate your comment about the grantee spotlights. We'll definitely continue doing those. Oh, thank you, Jeff. Maybe come down to Eugene. We didn't do a like formal community conversation in the Eugene proper, so you know, maybe there's yeah, that's not too far, I hope, for folks. So it's not that it would be far, it would be close for some and a little further for others, but yeah, love the idea. Thanks, Jeff. Any questions or comments on the agenda? And is anything, I don't know, is there something folks were expecting to see that they didn't see?
It looks good to me.
Thanks, Ann. Not seeing anything else in the chat. No other, Melissa, I don't see any other hands. We will, like I said, because Robin wasn't able, she's on a plane, so she got put on a plane midday today. We're going to send this to her. She said she would take a real close look and add any comments or questions. But again, her plan is that she'll be at the that June 8th meeting. So Tabidi, she will carry those sort of chair facilitation duties. And if y'all have, you know, any other conflicts or schedule stuff, like we want you there in person and for the whole meeting. And we've got the votes kind of right up front, as I said.
I'll be there in the morning for sure.
Yeah, great, Tabidi. We'll just make sure you get that link, and we'll love having you for the first, you know, hour or two. And virtual food is delicious, so yeah, we'll probably just take pictures of the food, Tabidi, and just like post them, and you can wish you were with us.
I have to say, I was pretty envious of the food last time as one of those virtual attendees.
That, I don't know, can't, Melissa, you can say who kind of made the arrangements. I don't know if it's you or Joy or somebody, but as usual, you did a wonderful job. I know we needed like one more vegetarian meal or something, but it was all good. So. Okay, not hearing. There's no reason for me to keep this meeting. I don't know, staff or Cord, others, Anya, if there's anything, I think Paul's on here too. Is there anything that y'all think we should, you know, any final comments or questions?
I don't have anything to contribute, just looking forward to seeing folks in person in June.
Thanks, Anya. Anya and I were at the Oregon Juvenile Department Directors Association meeting in the Dalles late, like Wednesday afternoon and Thursday morning. It was really good to have. It was their quarterly board meeting, if I'm not mistaken, Anya.
Slightly different, was a full association meeting.
Full association meeting, thank you. But it was good to be in person.
Oh, absolutely.
I will not be able to make it to this upcoming Friday's equity committee meeting.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner. We appreciate knowing. Jared and Bill and I were kind of getting agendas prepared, and I too am you know, busy. So I said to them, let's see if we got critical mass or not. Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, you're on that group, so let us know if you're a thumbs up or thumbs down, and we will want to check with Andy and I think Robin and Celeste, my vague recollection of some additional people on that. So yeah.
Want to make sure that we give space to our guest, Sarah, if she has any public comments that she'd like to make at this time.
So I'm kind of new here, so I'm learning as I go. Regarding these meetings, is this like a closed executive committee invite, or is there going to be public participants?
It's a committee meeting of the Youth Development Council. Sarah, I'd love the question. It is also a public meeting, so members of the public are welcome to attend and listen in. And then committee members are the ones who are the formal and actual participants. And then we reserve time at the end of each meeting for public comment. We tend to, I don't know, we don't need to, there are certain public meeting rules and that you had this comment in the chat, and that we want to give you a chance to like participate to whatever extent you can. Like, we don't have to be like, sorry, only committee members may speak. You can, we don't want to be that formal, so we aren't. But it is officially a public meeting, and we meet usually 3 weeks or so as an executive committee prior to our full quarterly council meeting. And then there are other committees that meet, in between those full quarterly meetings. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's typically kind of how it goes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the clarification. Yeah. My role at PSU is, so it's a temp job through the Healthy Transitions Grant, which started in 2018 and is going to end in October 2023. So my role is to increase statewide youth engagement across different councils. And I've been really meaning to come to more of these. I've been to one, and I think we've met once before. But just now getting the chance to with some other stuff going on. But I would definitely love to get plugged in wherever would be helpful, and learn more about what you guys are about. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
We really appreciate it, Sarah. We could, perhaps it's, unless I might ask for a little your help, and I saw that saw at some point you showed your contact information in the chat. It might be, oh yeah, there you are with your PSU email. Might be, we could set up some time if it would be helpful, just to, connect. Happy to maybe like take the step back and say, so here's what youth development, Oregon does, and here's kind of our mission, vision, values, like kind of give you the bigger picture overview, if that would be helpful. And then we can, or Maricela, she's the chair of our youth committee, or other committee chairs, like if there's a way for us to think about and brainstorm other ways to engage, because the goals that I think I just heard you articulate we'd really love to frankly be like at the forefront of engaging more young people in our council. We, as I said, have a goal based on some federal guidelines of 20%. We'd like to get to 50%. And that was laid out in our strategic plan. We haven't accomplished that yet. We've added a newer young person who is 16, going on 17, which we're excited about. Have some other younger folks who, as I said, have kind of some specific lived experience around juvenile justice. And to other points, we've had some younger people term off who have other lived experience and just frankly other expertise, and that we need to replace in a matter of speaking, and all with the idea that my hope is that we have just like I said, at least a majority young person committee, and each of those young people will bring all kinds of interesting lived experience and expertise to the table. And because that age is 28, which I don't know if that's young, but that's a helpful bar, because it means you also have folks who, who are a little bit older and have, are working, or maybe have finished whatever schooling or training that they're doing, and and having folks who are under 18, that's a whole nother thing that we want to just do with intention. And frankly, we're learning a lot as we have a 16-year-old and want to create a space that feels, both safe and brave for that person. So I'm happy to keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a big part of it, I mean, that I've noticed just all councils is just the onboarding process, and the orientation can be pretty tricky. And so I'm speaking a little bit from my own experience as well. So I graduated with my bachelor's of social work at Portland State this last June. I worked for about a year, well, technically 4 years if you count volunteering, at a suicide hotline, and sort of jumped into this job that's sort of more on the system of care level, and it was all very new to me. And I found myself attending a lot of meetings where I just had no idea what people were talking about. I knew they were talking about youth. They were talking about like my people, but just the terminology is so thick. And I'm at the point now where I more so know, and I'm able to engage in the work. But it's definitely, I think the orientation can be very difficult. And I'm happy to talk more about like specific ways to sort of get around that, as well as like recruitment and retainment. Because it is really important. You're right. Especially for the younger folks, who, I mean, I think it's a little bit easier for the later 20s who maybe have some experience already. But for the younger folks who, I mean, they have lived experience, which is extremely valuable and needed, but not necessarily the lingo, the language of systems work. But, there's ways to address that. So, yeah, it's great to hear about what you guys are doing. And I would love to hear more about the specifics of YDO. Sorry if there's background noise. There is a lawnmower right outside.
No worries, Sarah. We appreciate it. We'll stay in contact, and just love that you're here. So you're welcome, and assume that you maybe have signed up maybe for our like email kind of list, so when meetings are happening. I've been attending system of care meetings, and I know that frankly the person that we were going to talk to about like incentives is the system of care executive director,
Anna Williams.
Anna. Yeah, so Anna, and I was on the call with Anna yesterday, and
Oh, I was on a call through this morning.
oh good, yeah. So I think that that group takes this engagement seriously, and we do too, and so we're going to try to learn some things from them. And I think Anna was helping to review some of our applications, so I just think there's some real good synergy there. So yeah, appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Anna's starting up that SOCAC Youth Council. That's really awesome too. I attended their first meeting.
Exactly.
There's a great group of folks there.
Yeah. And I think there's maybe some opportunity for us to co-learn, not try to duplicate effort. Like we don't want, hey, young people, do you want to be on their thing and our thing? And then people are stretched too thin. But I think there will be some good learning from that.
Right.
So,
and I've also noticed that's a bit of an issue within council work is councils tend to draw in the same pool of youth because they're like, oh, these are the youth that we know and that already kind of know systems work. So let's get them plugged in here and here and here. And then end up skipping over youth who are maybe not traditionally asked to serve. And I think in the context of youth development Oregon, that it's so important to get youth from that have involvement directly with different systems who aren't usually traditionally asked to serve. So yeah, love your guys' work. Thanks for hearing me out.
You're very welcome. We appreciate it. Well, that's probably a good note, unless there are any other questions or comments. Maybe Tabidi, you can and Melissa, any other public comment or any other folks? No. Tabidi, do you want to adjourn us?
Sure. I move that we adjourn this meeting. Sorry about that. My phone went off right as I was talking. Sorry.
All right. With that, thanks everybody. Have a good rest of your Friday and weekend.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Couple weeks.
In a few
Yeah.
weeks. Take care.